What's up and welcome to another edition of Locked On NBA, the biggest stories with the local experts. I'm your host, Jackson Gatlin, also host of Locked On Rockets right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Today, we'll be joined by Kane Pitman from Locked On Bucks to discuss the only team in the NBA with an undefeated record still. The Milwaukee Bucks off to a fantastic start this season behind some dominant play from Giannis Antetokounmpo. Plus, what's the latest timetable on Khris Middleton and MarJon Beauchamp being entrusted with some extra minutes over these last few games. We're going to talk about that after a quick message from our friends over at PrizePicks. Next game, how about Donovan Mitchell to score more than 26.5 points? What about LeBron James to have more than 7.5 rebounds? How about Nikola Jokic to have more than 8.5 assists? Look, how does PrizePicks work? What is it? How do you play? You pick 2 to 5 players, and if they score more or less than their PrizePicks projections, you're going to win up to 10 times back on your money on any single entry. There's no competing against other people. It's just you versus the projections available. PrizePicks offers projections on any sport that you watch. That includes NBA, NFL, MLB, NHL, you name it, they've got you covered over at PrizePicks. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It's that simple. They offer safe and very, very fast withdrawals. Download the PrizePicks app or go to prizepicks.com to sign up and play daily fantasy sports. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code LOCKEDON. If you deposit $100, PrizePicks will give you $100. If you deposit $50, PrizePicks will give you $50. Don't forget to enter promo code LOCKEDON at sign up for an instant deposit match up to $100. Joining us now to talk about the only undefeated team remaining in the association is none other than Kane Pitman from Locked On Bucks. You can follow on Twitter at Kane Pitman. Kane, at the core of the Bucks, strong 9-0 start to the season, at the core of everything they do, right, is none other than, of course, Giannis Antetokounmpo, who his numbers are just absurd. Like, every time I look at what he's doing, it's like video game numbers that he's putting up, right? I mean, he's averaging, 32 and a half points per game, 13 boards, almost 6 assists, a block and a half per game, doing it all on 60% true shooting. Do you ever just start running out of ways to describe the level of dominance that Giannis plays with on a nightly basis?
Well, we do discuss on Locked On Bucks pretty regularly that Giannis might have a night where he has 35, 10, and 6 or whatever, which, as you pointed to, is already his averages. And then we get halfway through the show and we're like, by the way, we should actually go back and talk about Giannis as well, because he does it every single night. You're always looking for different angles, as you understand, doing a daily show. And sometimes you do overlook the consistent brilliance of Giannis. But no question, if you look at the Bucks undefeated to this point in the season, despite missing some key guys, it hasn't exactly been a juggernaut of a schedule. They've been at home for 7 of those 9 games. But what it does tell you is that when you have a superstar like Giannis, a lot of the times, just him alone will ensure that you can still beat a high percentage of the league on most nights. And we've seen that with the Bucks with their start to the season so far.
And of those games, you mentioned, 7 of them being at home. In addition to that, the only team so far that's been over 500 that the Bucks have played, at least as far as the way the schedules look right now, the results, the Atlanta Hawks, only team above 500 that the Bucks have played so far to this point. Kane, what are you seeing out of Giannis? You talk about kind of maybe diving into some of the nuances of his game on a nightly basis, not getting, being super accustomed to the brilliance. What are you seeing that's allowing him to be this level of dominant to start the season?
Yeah, it's been interesting because he's had a number of nights where he gets his points, but perhaps he's not as efficient as we've come to expect. And this is a guy that last year was like 72% at the rim, which is obviously alien numbers. I mean, that doesn't even make sense. So he hasn't quite been there to start the season. But what we have seen is the trust that he has in the other guys. And we've seen a number of games where he actually looks like he is intentionally trying to go into facilitator mode and get other guys involved. The other night we saw MarJon Beauchamp, the Bucks' first-round draft pick from last season. He had 14 points against Minnesota. Giannis assisted on 5 baskets in those 14, including 2 3-pointers. So he's got to the point in his career where he's like, okay, I can pick and choose what I want to do. Do I want to score a bunch of points tonight? Do I want to get other guys involved? He just is in so much control. And I think that's been the continued growth as we've seen him become a better passer, a better playmaker, and his basketball IQ somehow seems to be still growing at a rapid rate as well.
Now, despite the impressive play from Giannis and the record reflecting that play, the Bucks are kind of floating middle of the pack offensively right now. Ranked 16th in offense. Now, obviously missing, Middleton, Pat Connaughton, guys like that. That's probably going to be part of the answer, I would assume. But what are some of the other reasons for the Bucks' kind of slow start offensively this season?
Yeah, this is a team that even if they have success in the postseason, that's a long way away. But it's going to be built off their defense. It was when they won the championship. It has been every year since Bud's been there, because if you really look at this roster, there is concern over the outside shooting, and there is concern over guys, the number of guys that can create their own shot. Jrue Holiday can, but he takes such a heavy responsibility on the defensive end that we've seen in the playoffs in the past that perhaps his offensive efficiency isn't where it is during the regular season. So if you take out really the one guy that can get any shot he wants on the perimeter, is able to take advantage of matchups on the outside, it's Khris Middleton. And we saw last year in the postseason against Boston, the Bucks offense was absolutely awful without Khris in the lineup. And as you said, it's been middle of the pack against not exactly a juggernaut of a schedule. So, moving forward, the Bucks have been awful shooting the three in the postseason, basically since Bud's been here. So that is still a huge question mark. And is their ability to just have guys that can score in isolation, that can get their own basket. So without Middleton, it's not a huge surprise. This is why heading into the season, I was someone who thought that maybe they would get off to a slow start until Khris came back. Now, they've been able to bank wins so far and overcome the offense because of what they've been doing defensively. But yeah, the offense is still going to be a question for this team. A lot of it is, Giannis, what can you do for this team? Can you score 35 points a night? So far, he's been able to do it.
I should have given the Bucks their flowers. They are the most dominant defensive team in the association. So I should have led with that tidbit before, slamming them for being middle of the pack offensively, because there is a reason why they're undefeated to this point. Now, looking elsewhere at this roster, you mentioned his name there a moment ago, MarJon Beauchamp. Over the last handful of few games, he's been entrusted with some more minutes by Coach Bud. What are you kind of seeing out of him, and what has he been able to provide to this team?
Yeah, he was nervous to start the season. I think he admitted that. He had a few shaky performances to start, even though it was sporadic minutes, we should say, which I always think for these young guys is so challenging. It's your first experience playing in the NBA. And it's like, by the way, you've got 5 minutes on a really good team. Let's see what you can do out there. So
make the most of your 5. Like,
that's right.
No pressure at all.
No, it's crazy. So yeah, he admitted he was a little bit nervous, but again, we saw he was a little more assertive against Minnesota. He's been willing to take the outside shot, which is an area that still needs significant improvement for him. Ultimately, they drafted him because they love his defensive potential, and he's had moments. He's had moments where one-on-one, he's guarded really well. He's been able to force the ball out of players' hands or get a deflection, get a steal there. So he's got talent defensively, but offensively, again, he's a role player. Giannis has made so many role players money and made them look great on the offensive end, and that's probably what it's going to be for Beauchamp. They're not going to look to him to score a bunch of points, but in transition, knock down the corner three. That's basically what they're asking him to do.
Yeah, Beauchamp was a guy that I loved going through the pre-draft process, and I desperately wanted him on the Houston Rockets, but the Milwaukee Bucks is a fantastic situation for a rookie to be in. So much success with that organization, and guys to really learn from. So I love that he landed in Milwaukee. But last thing I got for you, Kane, what's the latest right now on two of the key guys? Obviously, Khris Middleton, still out of the rotation. Pat Connaughton as well. What's the latest update on those guys, and when can we expect to see them back on the floor?
Yeah, they're both getting close. So it could be in the next week or so that they'll both make their return. Pat Connaughton with a calf strain that he suffered back in preseason, and Khris Middleton from the wrist surgery. So Middleton is the interesting one because there really hasn't been a lot of updates along the way. This has been months of recovery for him after the surgery back in, I believe it was June. It was a long, long time ago that he had this surgery, but he just recently went down to the Wisconsin Herd, has been in contact drills, scrimmaging with the G League team. We see players do this. Klay Thompson did it with the Golden State Warriors before he returned. NBA teams just don't practice. So it's a great way for these guys to actually get some 5-on-5 in on off days for the NBA team. And generally, if you're going down to the G League team and practicing, it's within that 2-week window. So initially, I thought the middle of November. I think that's still on track.
Will Giannis Antetokounmpo's dominance lead to potentially further down the line his third MVP trophy? Will the Milwaukee Bucks be able to kind of ramp things up offensively once Khris Middleton is back in the lineup? Of course, you got us covered for all of that and more over at Locked On Bucks. Kane, I appreciate you stopping by Locked On NBA with me.
Absolute pleasure.